Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on women leaders in data science. It's organized by OCTAVE. OCTAVE is the advanced analytics arm of John Keells. I'm Lamana. I'll be your host for the evening. We're very excited to have you here today. I work as a senior data scientist at OCTAVE. And I drive the data science work in a few use cases within the retail domain, so specifically working with Keells. So in lieu of International Women's Day, we've organized this webinar, and what we really hope to achieve over the course of this hour and a half is to open up a conversation about what it's like to be working within the DS space, what sort of challenges people, women especially, face, and so on. And so we've got an amazing group of professionals with us today. They'll be sharing their insights, stories, experiences, and I really hope that we can all learn from each other. So if you have any questions or you want to share any similar experiences or stories, please feel free to add them in the chat box. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And we'll also keep about 15 minutes at the end of the session where we can discuss your questions and sort of continue the conversation forward. Okay, so for today, the plan is to have 3 different parts. One is a keynote address, the other is a panel discussion, and then the last part, like I mentioned earlier, would be the Q&A session. So for today's keynote address, this will be given by Nilusha Fernando. Nilusha is an assistant vice president of the John Keells Group, and she's also the head of marketing. She is a CIMA past finalist, and she holds a BBA with a finance special from the Faculty of Management and Finance in the University of Colombo. So she has over 10 years of experience within the retail industry and has been in the field of marketing from the get-go. And currently she owns 5 of OCTAVE's use cases with Keells. So I'm really looking forward to hearing her thoughts, and I hope you are too. Nilusha, over to you.
Good evening and a warm welcome to all of you who have joined in to listen to us today. Thank you, Team OCTAVE, for inviting me to deliver the keynote today. In recent years, more than ever before, there is a significant hype around the word data or big data. Data is now a core intellectual property, or if you will, a core currency that businesses use to convert into intelligent action. Now, it doesn't Let me share with you 2 examples I came across recently on how data is utilized to solve a business problem or drive customer satisfaction. My first example is of a brand that we have all heard, and it's from Google. Now, Google offices are supposed to have the best employee cafeterias. The Manhattan office is said to have free food, all you can eat, 24/7. And a report I read said that their cafeteria is as optimized as their search engine. Now, what was the problem that Google had? Googlers claimed they were packing on the pounds. So how did Google handle this problem? They hired a behavioral scientist, they engaged with their HR team, they listened to their employees, and they analyzed the data of what was moving in their cafeterias. So what was the solution that they brought? They landed smaller plates Obviously, that's a surefire way of making sure you eat less. They brought all the healthy food and the salads up front. They put all the desserts and the naughty food right at the back. They made the dessert portion sizes really small, and they even included color-coded nutrient information so that people knew exactly what they were eating. So this is one example of how a business leveraged on data from multiple sources to solve a problem. Now, my second example is also from a brand or a product that some of us, I'm sure, have experience using, and it's from Microsoft Outlook. If you're aware of the function called Microsoft Analytics, sometimes you get a weekly or a monthly email showing how many hours you've spent collaborating, that is at various meetings, how much time you have spent on your email program, and very interesting, a latest feature, how many quiet hours you have had. And now I found this really interesting because they are using the data of the product to drive a feature that would really satisfy their customers. Because as a customer, it is looking at your mental well-being and calculating your quiet hours as well. So what I just explained to you, or these two examples, are things that I've experienced or read about. However, on a day-to-day basis, as my role of head of marketing at Keells supermarkets, I deal with many circumstances where data definitely comes to the rescue. If I look at last year, 2020, posed unprecedented challenges to all of us as individuals and also for many businesses and to our business as well due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting lockdowns. The complete upheaval in the priorities of customers, their lifestyles changing, their shopping habits changing, was a complete shift in what we knew and thought as normal. Now, one thing I must tell you is supermarkets, the supermarket industry is very much reliant on accepted and understood behavioral patterns of customers. So we know a little bit of how things usually happen. Now, you would think at an unprecedented or absolutely chaotic time like what we experienced last year, how can data support a business? Because the data that we have is of what would define as normal behavior. No sooner we realized that there were shifts in our customers' behavior, the first place we looked at was data. And we looked at data from various sources to help explain the behaviors and the phenomenon that was actually happening. We noticed by looking at data from multiple sources, people were shopping less often, they were buying more when they did go into the shop, and they, above all, they were prioritizing their safety during this time period. So let me walk you through 4 real problems that we as a business faced during last year, how we utilized the data at hand to either improve the experience for our customers or solve a business problem. So let me walk you through 4 very summarized examples. Now, our customers told us that they wanted to be able to get everything under one roof when they actually stepped out. They were not stepping out so often because they didn't want to risk exposure, but when they did step out, they wanted to buy everything and just get out of that place really fast. So I think what they were telling us was product availability mattered to them. So we at Keells arrived at 2 possible solutions to this problem. We launched a mobile app that carried a feature where everybody can check product availability from the safety and comfort of their home. So you could log into our mobile app and check out a store close to you and see if what you want to buy is available. And that was one feature we brought in. To further strengthen product availability, we set up a mini team that would look at it at a granular level of detail. We were experiencing severe supply chain constraints. There were manufacturing facilities getting closed. There were import restrictions that were being brought. So we set up a small team to try and problem solve this issue. And we even looked at what are some of the substitutes that we can have in place if certain products were not available. So this is one example how we used data and came up with solutions to solve a customer problem. Now the second example is where during the first lockdown, we were completely shifting our ways of operating from a brick and mortar business to an online business. And we wanted to find out from our customers how we were doing, to be able to listen to them, hear them, and cater to what they were asking us to do. So they told us they wanted constant updates of how the business was operating, particularly during the lockdown and post-lockdown. So we got together with Team Octave and we built a social media sentiment tool that really helped us look at the conversations, look at the customer comments that were coming through. On top of that data, we further layered the information that we were getting through our customer care centers. With that in mind, we developed a communication method to speak to our customers on a daily basis through our social media platforms, where on a daily basis we went and told them how many orders we were taking, what was the latest product range we added to the online platform, were there certain stores that were closing or opening, what were the times, and we were able to better engage with our customers and deliver for them. Once again, purely relying on data from multiple sources. We also understood through analysis of data that our customer footfall pre and during COVID was different. And there were certain groups of customers who were not shopping with us, particularly post-lockdown. So we went to our customers and tried to understand why. We understood that there was a group of slightly elderly customers who had still not stepped out of their homes, particularly for safety reasons, and they were using either third parties or online platforms to shop. There was another group of customers who told us that their working patterns have changed. They are not taking their children to school anymore. So they don't pass their usual stores, so they're working from home. There was another group of customers that told us that navigating through an online shopping platform isn't that easy. So we used all that information and we came up with a limited circulation WhatsApp number to cater to certain groups that had issues in getting through to us and shopping with us. Finally, we also noticed that our sales was fluctuating during this time, particularly because it was very uncertain and things have changed a lot. So what we did was we set up an action plan and a small team together to evaluate the data of who has been shopping with us, understand what they wanted, look at what were the offers and deals that we had at that time, and come up with a communication program to be able to communicate with our loyalty base so that they knew exactly what was on offer, we were giving them savings, and they could come back and shop with us. So these are 4 very simple and high-level examples of how we used data from multiple sources to solve a business problem, but also importantly, deliver for our customers. I would mainly like to leave 2 key points that I have learned through my experience of working with data. First, don't be afraid to connect the dots. Data analysis often can point in multiple directions. As an individual working with data, it is very important that you ask the right questions like why, what, how, so that you understand the root causes and do not settle till you actually have a fair enough explanation. Also, if one point or source of information is not sufficient, it's always a good idea to rely on multiple sources so that you arrive at a better conclusion. My second point is build a narrative. Data always tells a story. For me, the fascinating aspect of working with data has always been the fact that data tells a story. And like I said before, once you connect all those dots, it is much more convincing, and that story is a much better narrative. For example, let's take that example that I used before, where a certain business is possibly experiencing lower footfall or lower sales. Now, it could be due to various reasons. It could be safety reasons. It could be because the products they want to buy are not available. It could be because prices have gone up. It can be multiple reasons. To be able to build that story, you need to dig in deeper, ask the right questions, go to the root causes, and actually look at, so what? What is the data telling me? And be able to connect those dots and build a story. Now, the most important fact of telling that story is that it has to be interpreted in the domain that you are working within. So we can't just only look at the data and exclude the domain it is existing within. Interestingly, a little bit more of a personal story here. My career starts with a love for stories that data can tell. I too realized during my undergraduate studies that I had a knack for and loved working with numbers. So this led me down the path of pursuing studies in finance, because for me at that time, numbers meant finance. Thanks to the opportunity I had at John Keells Group, I joined as a management trainee, and I was able to realize what I wanted to do with my career. So I completely moved to a role in marketing, having studied finance, where my background in finance and love for data has really helped me lead several advanced analytic use cases and make informed and intelligent decisions for the business. Looking back from a personal point of view, I never thought that my lack of qualifications in the data sphere or my gender were variables that will hold me back. 10 years since then, working with data is now a very much in thing. I recently read a Forbes article that stated that data scientists and data engineers are some of the most sought after job titles right now and even in the future. Like I mentioned before, data has the ability to solve problems and make a lasting difference, not just for businesses, but much more for even society. And therefore, in an industry, it is important to have diversity and representation in gender in an industry that seeks to influence many spheres of business and as well as overall life in general. It is actually a space that anyone can thrive in, regardless of gender, and I'm confident that females can and will add value. Finally, we have saved the best for last. Let me wind up my talk and hand over to the panel of extremely talented ladies from Octave that I have had the privilege of working with on different occasions across many advanced analytic use cases within the group. Let's listen to them, try to understand what their experience has been with working with data, how they chose this as a career, and how they've overcome certain challenges, and so much more. Thank you. Over to you, Lamana.
Thank you, Nilusha. That was a very, very insightful address, and I think there's a lot to learn from your unique viewpoint of being in the business and utilizing or leveraging data to solve, problems within your business domain itself. And I think it's also interesting how, like you mentioned about how you've, like, over the last year leveraged the insights that you get from data to solve specific, like to improve sort of the overall customer experience over different fronts, like product availability or driving footfall to the stores and so on. And so that's kind of really unique. And yeah, I've worked with you over a couple of use cases, and it's always been really interesting because as a data scientist, you always look at only the data aspect. And so to really work very closely with the business domain, you understand how it can be applied and really sort of how it can be relevant to the business as well. And also, I think you made a really important point on the importance of connecting the dots. So you're using data science to identify patterns, but at the end of the day, you want to focus on that narrative and really make it very relevant. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much for your words as well. I hope everyone in the audience enjoyed Nilusha's address. Now, if you have any questions for Nilusha or just generally any questions, just putting a reminder out there, please feel free to write in, send us your questions, and we'll sort of take them over at the end. Okay, so as promised, the next part of the webinar is a panel discussion with some of my amazing colleagues. So we'll take a couple of minutes to introduce each and every one of them, and then we'll have about 10, 11 questions that we'll ask in the hopes of getting their opinion and their viewpoints. Okay, so we start off with Chamodi. Chamodi, she's a data scientist. She works at Octave as well. And she is working on use cases within the retail domain. She and I have worked on one use case just that we're wrapping up right now. And I think you joined about maybe 6 months ago to Octave. So that is Chamodi. Then let me introduce also Dinusha. She's also a data scientist. And she works actually both within retail and also within beverages. So Keells, and now she's working with Salon Cold Stores. And she has been with Octave since its inception. So from about almost 2 years up to date now. So Dinusha comes with a lot of experience on both domains that we're working on. Then let me move to Nadisha. So Nadisha just joined us this year. She is a senior data scientist. She's working on some use cases for Salon Cold Stores along with Dinusha. And then last but not least, we've got our visualization analyst, our resident visualization analyst, who's called all the time within Octave. This is Shashini. She delivers dashboards for all of the use cases that we're working on. And she's also joined Octave about 6 months ago. So yeah, we've got a very interesting and exciting set of ladies who will be giving their thoughts on different questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump right into these panel discussions. And I'll start off with something that will give everyone a chance to introduce themselves a little bit more and give you all a little bit more insight as to what a typical day at Octave is like. Okay, so everyone, can you share a little bit about what you do and what your typical day is like? Maybe we can start with Chamodi.
Yeah, sure. So when you hear data scientists, so you would expect that every day we are building cool AI and machine learning stuff. But sorry to disappoint, like less than 20% of the work is actually model building. But like most of the days we'd spend doing exploratory data analysis, research, lots and lots of research, and data cleaning, exploring the resources, and many discussions with the business. So like I said, some days it's complex problem solving, and the other days it's basic stuff, but it's never boring, it's never monotonous. There's always something new to learn every day, at least in the domain that you're working in. So yeah, that's general the type of work, and that is basically how we spend our day. Yeah.
Okay, brilliant. How about Nadisha?
Yeah, Lamana. A general misconception of a role of a data scientist is it's yet another programming job. But actually, the job is far more interesting than that. So if I take the life at Octave, like we adhere to agile approaches very much, and we have weekly sprint planning meetings and daily sync up meeting with the team. So then I know exactly what my team members are doing, and they know what kind of help and what kind of tasks they need to perform in order to flow my day smoothly, right? I spend a lot of time of my day in problem solving, as in brainstorming sessions, maybe planning some data sources, or maybe designing some models, or designing the value levers of a model. Like a lot of time is spent on these kind of brainstorming sessions, and then we come up into certain solution approaches. Some part of my day is spent in bringing all these mind maps into some realistic pace of working prototypes. And I always try to allocate at least some time of my day in order to cater the learning and growth journey as well. You know, it's very important for everyone, and I try to read some of the research papers or some reading materials which can give some insights of the use cases or the products that we are building on. So yeah, that's how it flows.
Amazing. Thanks, Nadesha. I always want to keep this time to focus on some learning that I do every day or every week, but it never happens. So I should learn from you now. Okay, so Dinusha, what about you?
Yeah, I guess Nadisha and Chamodi gave a good overview, so I'll add on top of what they said. So what they said depends mostly on the phase of the project we are on. So if the project, our main project, is just starting up, so what we'll mostly do is we'll be trying to understand the domain, what's the problem we are working on, and doing lot and lot of preliminary analysis, and maybe ask Govi and BU to get the data to facilitate the use case. And then if we are in the modeling phase, a lot of our time would be involved in technical aspects, solution development, coding, those stuff. And if we are at the end of the use case, then we'll again be aligning with the business, whether we are giving them the right solution that they expected. And presenting to the business what we derived from the data, kind of like that. So that would be a typical day. Right?
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Dinusha. So it's interesting to hear, from different perspectives on what a typical day is like from our data scientists. So let's have a look at our resident visualization analyst. And I'm laughing because Shashini and I have had many conversations about me saying, "Oh, I need this dashboard, Shashini, please." So please tell us a little bit more about your typical day.
Yeah, so basically my work is simply creating dashboards. So at Octave, we are using Power BI. I'm not saying that it's a new requirement every day, but there can be requirements as well as a lot of change requests, which are for different dashboards that is available. So the main thing that I'm doing is prioritizing, and also when it comes to creating dashboard with the help of all of you. So I'm not so whatever I'm delivering, it is really simple with the help that you are giving, because all the hard work is at the back of the dashboard. So I'm simply creating the final product. So in my point of view, visualization is a satisfying job for me, because for me, when it comes to creating dashboards, I don't think of a time or what situation that is. So yeah, that's how the day goes for me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shashini. So I think it's fair to say that no 2 days are the same. And we're doing everything from building the model, optimizing it is what you would typically expect data scientists to do. And also things like, identifying what the value of a different project is, like monetary values, and, really having conversations with the business to understand what is the problem, what do they need, what are some of the constraints, and so on. And also on the dashboarding front, like Shashini mentioned, creating all of those dashboards that convey very relevant information for the different projects that we're working on. So thank you very much for the feedback. Now, let's see. Let's move into sort of like a more like a why are we in this field? What was your motivation to join this strange and fast-paced world of data science? And Chamodi, maybe you can take this up.
Yeah, interesting. So I started this as a result of my passion for algorithms. Data science was not as popular as it is right now, or trendy as it is right now. So when I had to choose a specialization for my master's degree, I remember going through all the course book and selecting the specialization with the most number of algorithm-like subjects. So which ended up being data science. And so eventually, when I was studying it, I realized that this was an interdisciplinary area in which I could combine many of my other passions like programming, math, psychology, linguistics, behavioral analysis, and much more. So no regrets, best decision I made.
Brilliant. Exciting, yeah. I think for me, I didn't have a clue about computer science when I started it. But I think over the course of my undergrad study, and I started getting, interested in so many different spaces of computer science. Like data science itself, just like you mentioned, because it touches so many different fields. It makes it really interesting to be a part of, and you can be working on projects across different domains. So you're always exercising different parts of your brain, which is very cool. Okay, all right. So since this is a women in data science webinar, let's move into a little bit more women focused questions. So in particular, how do you think women are uniquely positioned to contribute in data science? Nadisha, I think you had some interesting thoughts. Would you like to take the audience through, please?
Yeah, Lamana. So the most exciting breakthrough of the 21st century will not occur because of technology itself, but because what it means to humans, right? So if we take males and females, in psychological aspects, there is a difference, and we need to accept that, right? So for example, how a female perceives something might be totally different from the same situation perceived by a male, right? So when it comes to data science, especially the AI-based products, use extrinsic and intrinsic characteristics to model something linked to human cognition. So in this case, the accurate balance of perspectives are needed in order to have a balanced AI product. So I feel like without having that balance of opinions from males and females, the models can be vulnerable to certain biases, right? So I believe there is very unique contribution coming from women, especially in this domain of data science.
Nice, thanks, Nadisha. Yeah, you're right on point in that this is what we're all chasing, right? This elusive removal of bias in our models. And you're right, a lot of it's all about like your creativity in terms of defining what that model is going to learn. And so it's really important to get, multiple perspectives in there. So it's not only about like the technical removal of bias, but also that, subjective removal of bias that's there. Also, I think, like it's not an isolating like space. You work a lot with like a different number of people, like from the business to like the data engineers, to the data scientists, to the data to the visualization analysts. So you have to kind of be very good at working with teams and so on. So you've got to have that a strong sense of empathy and so on. So I think in that way we have more of an advantage as well, because we are better team players. So so I think there also I think there's a very big advantage in sort of being a woman in a data science team. Okay, all right. So let's do a little bit of reflection and let's see what are some of your biggest successes and biggest learning opportunities that you've had. And maybe Chamodi, can you take it up, please?
Yeah, sure. So the most significant thing that I can think of is when I was reading for my master's, I had the opportunity of, so this was my first job as a data scientist, and then I had the opportunity of joining a team as a founding member of a team catering to a tier 1 retailer in USA, and so this was very challenging, to say the least, because of so many factors. The first thing is that I knew theory like back of my hand. If you ask me what precision and recall means, I could give you the definitions. But translating that into business terms, making the stakeholders aware of it in business, giving the model a business perspective was something that was difficult. And the other thing was, so this was a huge retail chain with 1,000-odd stores, and then so the stakeholders that I had to deal with were like VPs and directors and people like that. And then on top of that, add the time zone difference to the mix, and often I was expected to work late hours. And to be honest, I've even worked as late as 2 a.m. in the morning. And I'm in no way glamorizing overwork here. But I wanted to say is that the reason why I joined this course was not because they were mandatory or anything, because I thought that I could at least learn a word or two during these meetings, because often these meetings were with vendors, third-party people from the Silicon Valley. So I found that to be a very good learning opportunity for me. And I'm grateful for the ones who had given had their trust in me, and as well as I'm glad that I took that challenge. And so I consider it to be like 1 in a million opportunities that a budding data scientist me could gain.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's true. What an amazing experience to be able to work on such large scale data, and then to also be able to listen in to different stakeholders and get their views on different problems. That's really cool. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's important to be able to find those different pockets where you can stretch yourself and learn as much as you can. So very, very cool. Okay, so you've had your biggest learning opportunity and biggest success tied together in your first job. Awesome. Okay. So All right, then I think let's sort of move to the next question on sensitivities. And before that, I'm going to do my due diligence and remind everyone to please put in your questions if you have any. Whether it's to Nilusha or to any of the girls over here, and we'll be happy to answer. Okay. All right. So I think when it comes to sensitivities, especially for women in any space really, but in particular like in the tech space, because it's very much a male-dominated space right now. One thing is this aspect of confidence, right? So we wanted to pose out this question: do you ever struggle with confidence? And if so, how do you overcome this? So Shashini, I think you had some interesting thoughts. Would you like to share some?
Sure, Lamana. So struggling with confidence can be two ways. It can be internal or external. So when I say internal, it can be a failure of simple tasks that you can't perform. And also external means a feedback on an opinion that has given for you. So when you struggle with confidence, it affects your work, your health, as well as your sleep. So in order to overcome this, the first thing that you have to do is you have to remind yourself that you can do you can perform the task, you can do anything, and stop doubting yourself. On the other hand, you can speak to people and get their feedback, and you have to make sure that you weigh out. Otherwise, if you get good feedback, like you have to know what you are hearing, and then if you see, okay, this is good for me, then you can keep it inside, and then the rest you can avoid it. So in that way, you can avoid struggling with confidence and move on in a particular given task and in your day-to-day life.
Brilliant. Thanks, Shashini. I think very, very timely advice. Actually, it's a very timeless advice rather, because we do struggle with this a lot, and it affects us in so many spaces, right? Whether it comes to interviews, negotiations, even making, decisions at work. This is really a very core emotion that we need to kind of work on. There is a very popular saying, though I'm not sure whether it's a really good saying, fake it till you make it. So I guess to some extent it's good because it kind of puts you in that, mental space. But then of course you don't want to say, yeah, I can make a rocket, there's no problem. And then, like shoot yourself in the foot afterwards. But yeah, I think confidence is a very, very important, thing to have internally for you to be very successful. Okay, all right. So we are moving from different spaces, from motivation to sensitivities, and now let's look at a little bit of a reflection on things you wish you'd known in university. The age-old question: what could I have done better? So maybe Dinusha, would you like to take it up?
Yeah, Lamana, thanks. So I went to university, I guess, ages back, like 8 to 10 years ago. And when I was going, this machine learning field was not very famous. So, but I was lucky enough to study statistics, maths, and the computer science at there. But I wish I knew that field. I would be working in this field, and this field would come up to this level. If so, like I got my theories right back then, but I wish if I knew this, I would have focused on more practical aspects. I would have participated into more hackathons, tried to translate real world into analytical solutions. So from the very beginning, I could have done that. So that's what I wish I would have known at the university.
Okay, cool. And Shashini, what about you?
Yeah, Lamana. So I actually followed a management degree. So I wish actually I have followed something related to data science, but at that time it wasn't available for us to choose. It was the key fields that was there. So I have that regret that I would have followed something related to data science since I'm here right now in this field.
Okay, interesting. So from Dinusha, I think your biggest takeaway was it's good to learn your fundamentals, but it's also very, very important to try and apply that as practice as early as you can. And right now, like there's just literally like no shortage from like just doing your own work. You've got enough and more problems available online. Participating in Kaggle competitions, hackathons happening worldwide. All of these things are super accessible. So to really push yourself to apply these theories into like the real solutions. And I think from Shashini, you mentioned something really important. You don't come from a data science background, right? So what that transition was like, and so on. And I think that's also another really like cool thing about data science is that it's like really welcoming to people from so many different fields. Like you can be a designer, you can be an economist, so on. And I think to draw back to Nadisha's point on earlier on, like you're always looking to remove bias in models, and just like the way you want like equal representation of male and female, you also want this amalgamation of like different people who think so differently, and that would just make the data driven solutions more and more useful. So thank you, Dinusha and Shashini. Now we look at this question that is not really focused on women in tech, but it's just generally, women, working women. How do you organize your time to feel fulfilled? And Nadisha, as the mom, you are somebody in the group who has a little baby. So would you like to give your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Lamana. So we are working in companies, and at the same time, we have caring families and loved ones. So when you consider women, especially mothers, spend more time in labor force now than the previous eras actually. And if you take the women's time, it is spent in child care as well as mothers, right? So this shows women constantly put time in commitments and responsibilities both personally and professionally, which at certain times find difficult to balance, right? So within the last couple of years as a mother, there are like certain ways that I try to manage my work and life in order to minimize stress and maximize positive experience. So let me share some of those. So what generally I do is I share my workload. Like I don't try to grab everything to myself, right? So this delegation of work release my mind and mind from stress, and I always call out my colleagues or the management in certain times, or anybody who I think can contribute and help me on certain situations, right? So that is related to office work. But when it comes to home also, I try to delegate as far as I can the work that I think I'm supposed to do, right? So I get the help of my parents, in-laws and siblings, and maybe a couple of like house helpers are there. So so everyone helps me in order to balance my daily life. So the next point I like to bring here is time management and prioritizing, right? So sometimes we see like we are stuck in certain discussions, like and we might be in the back seats and might not be actively participating. So I always think like, what are the discussions or what are the tasks that I can add value on, right? Or whether whether I'm the best person to do that. If that is not the case, so I try to catch up with those discussions later through going through the minutes or something like that, right? So you know why this is important. So if we try to manage our limited time, then we can reinvest that time into some of the pending task or most demanding task, or maybe we can reinvest that time into some of our personal things as well, right? So this way it helped me to balance work and life better, right? So the other thing that I like to draw here is like I don't strictly follow schedules as in, okay, this is my office time or this is my family time. You know, now we are working from home. Like if my little kid comes to me and asks, hey mama, can you help me to draw some flower and color it? Okay, there's no way for me to deny that. So what I do is, okay, I will take a little short breaks from my office time, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So I try to be with her. And the other thing is, like, let it be some off time, let it be some weekends. So if I feel in those weekends, okay, this is the best time to concentrate on some of the important things. Okay, I don't think twice to spare my free time into some of the office things to strike a balance, right? So bringing this kind of flexibility into my daily schedule, I have been able to minimize stress and have a balance in order to balance work and life, yeah, but in a better way.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nadisha. So I think the main things that I gathered were that utilizing flexible work so that you are able to make time for your family, and also, you know, have these different pockets of time in which you can work, and really relying on the, you know, the support of your family to also allow you to, you know, do your work. And of course, the power of delegation, which is always it's a hard one, no? Like, it's a hard one to master. You always feel like as you should do everything, but then it's a recipe for disaster. Okay, so I've just had a look at the Q&A section, and we've got some very interesting questions. Thank you very much. We'll make a note of them and we'll definitely answer them at the end. So keep the questions coming. They're very, very interesting, the ones that I see so far. All right, so let's continue that same vein of like support from the people around you, right? So how do you think your community, so your friends, family, colleagues, how do they enable you to become a successful analytics professional? Dinusha, would you like to take this up?
Yeah, Lamana. So how I would define a successful data analytics person is a person who is very practical, sharp, up-to-date, skillful person. And to balance this with life, like Nadisha mentioned, you should have surround yourself with some understanding people, like mutual understanding from your parents, family, partner, friends. So like that. And also, like, I am very fortunate to have such a family and friends, and even at office I can give an example. So if we learn something new, we always try to share it with the colleagues. Like, we work in small teams, so we understand each other, we know the knowledge levels of each other. So if we know something, we try to communicate it to the others also. And also, if we face any problem, now that we are working from home, we just post it in a chat where everyone is there, and within 2 to 3 minutes, I have always got a solution. Someone comes forward. So that support is really, really valuable. So yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Dinusha. Yeah, I think you know, as much as we get credit for doing work, there is a lot of people behind us that is allowing us to this creating the, like, giving us the space to do it, right? Where there is time, comfort, so on. So it's never really a one-man show. There is a whole network of people around you who are there to support you, and it's important to recognize and leverage that. And so that way, like, everyone can share each other's successes, right? It's very cool. Okay, now we get into something a little bit more, I would say, it's not controversial, but it's not, it's more to do with bias, right? So bias is a real thing. It exists across all industries, and definitely does in tech as well. So how do you combat bias in the industry? And what are things that you can do? And what are things that the organizations can do to help combat bias? Shashini, would you like to tell something about it, please?
Sure, Lamana. So the first thing is that you should not let it affect yourself. You should keep in mind that whatever you are doing, it should be with an open mind. So what you have to do is you have to speak up about it, but at the right time with an open mind. Suppose you are having your opinions at one side of your head and thinking, okay, I'm going to hear this from the other person. That's not going to happen because you're biased inside your mind itself. So you have to make sure that you speak up at the right time with an open mind.
Brilliant, thanks. What about you, Nadisha?
Yeah, Lamana. So the statistics show that Sri Lankan women in labour force is around 38%, whereas it's more than 70% for men. So if we want to close this gap in gender-wise, right? So we need to bring some good policies, women-friendly policies. So I feel like in order to remove the biasness in the working place and all, the companies can think of like crafting more women-friendly policies, which will help to support women actually to bring these gaps down, right? I feel like introducing more flexible policies in terms of working hours, or in terms of like a number of hours per day or number of days per week a woman should work. Obviously those things will have certain financial implication to the person, but still it helps the women, it helps the people to keep remain sustained in the labor force. So right, so that is very much important. So I feel like in order to remove the implicit bias in this field, it's right time for the companies to come up with certain flexible policies and all.
Okay, brilliant. And Chamodi, what about you? What do you think about this?
Yeah, so I would like to share a bit of my personal experience here as well. So when I started my very first job as a fresh graduate, like I mentioned earlier, I come from a software engineering background. And when I started my very first job as young, at the age as young as 20 years old, I was the only girl in the team, the whole company. And I had all the reasons to feel, to doubt myself and feel intimidated, you know. But I chose to be confident about myself. And but I had to offer my skills despite my gender, my age, whatever the other factors were. It was helpful not only to face that situation or survive that situation. I think it has been important. It has been important for me to like survive throughout this career. And having said that, doesn't matter how confident you are about yourself, you will at some point in your career experience unconscious bias at work. Okay, and from how I see, we are all coming from different backgrounds, right? We are all different individuals coming from different backgrounds, different schools, different families, and we all might have different perspectives or views about different aspects of things, and that will eventually cause some unconscious bias in people. And so you shouldn't take it personally to begin with, and try to use your people skills and try to handle it professionally. And if you handle it well in that situation, you will not only change that particular person's perception about yourself, whether your perception about your capabilities, that will change the perception that person has about all female co-workers, right? So I think that is important. And from the company side, like Nadisha rightly mentioned, there are so many initiatives that companies can organize to create awareness of theirs. There is such thing, because it might not be, the person might not be doing this consciously. So it is important to raise awareness that this exists, and we should overcome this. And another thing is, like Nadisha mentioned, I think it is important to create initiatives, not only to hire people, but to retain the female workforce in the industry, create flexible working hours, and give that benefit, so that when it comes to a certain age, I know in this Sri Lankan culture, some women are expected to choose between the personal life or the career. So if we can create that flexibility within that work, and so that they don't have to choose between their career and their personal life, I think that would address some of the disadvantages that we have as women.
Brilliant. Thanks, Chamodi. So I think two main takeaways that I can gather from the three of you all. One is it's very much an internal sport. How do you sort of process this bias internally, and how do you respond to it? And the other is that it can be the effects of bias can be reduced at a systematic level as well, right? With proper policies on flexible working and so on. Nice. Okay, so this question, I see that a lot of questions that are coming in as well are touching on this point. What advice would you give somebody who is looking to grow their career in tech? So either entering tech or growing tech, like growing in tech, okay? So Shashini, would you like to take a stab at it first?
Yeah, so my advice would be, don't stop at mastering one tool and then stop there, because and also one other thing I want to highlight is that whatever the background that you're coming from, as I'm coming from a management background, but if you have the passion towards data science, you can enter into this field, and then every day there will be something new that you can learn in this field. So it is a field that is really addictive for me personally. So I would say that don't stop there. You can learn something every day. So yeah, that's my point of view on this.
Brilliant. And Chamodi, what about you?
Yeah, so my advice is be willing to learn and be willing to evolve, and sort of don't come into the industry looking convenience and comforts. You have to move out of your comfort zone and learn new things, not just technical. Change your mindsets and how you look at certain things. So change evolve as a person as well. And the other thing is take up opportunities, have a positive attitude for the challenges that you are going to be faced with. I know that's a cliche, but that's the truth, and that is what I have experienced throughout my career. And the other thing is, it is important to prioritize your requirements depending on which stage you are in your career. If you're starting off, your priority shouldn't be how fancy your role is going to be, the name of your role is going to be, or the company or whatever it is. You should look at whether I can get enough experience and exposure in this place. So make those your priority. And the other thing is, you're the best person to judge your skills and capabilities, understand what your passion is, and based on that, choose where you want to head. Not just the most trendiest or the most interesting job. So look into that aspect as well, and be confident of your skills. I think that is one of the questions that is most asked here, like how can I get into the industry, whether my qualifications are enough. So I think you are the best judge. If you are willing to learn new things, if you are willing to take up challenges, I think yeah, that is what it all takes.
Brilliant. And Dinusha, what about you?
Yeah, so advice which I can give is make sure you love what you do. So this will come really, really handy in your professional career. And in our field of work, in technical world, it's really easy to be workaholics. But the real win there is to have that good balance in your work and life and also health. So if we work like machines, it won't be very efficient. Like we should always know to pause, take a breath, and be efficient and be creative. So, and lastly, what I can add is we should never stop learning. Like there's lots of valuable resource out there, people to reach out, and there are lots of help to ask out and to grow ourselves. So yeah, that would be some advices.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So I think a couple of takeaways from all of you all were that it's important to keep learning and and be sort of pace yourself and be creative and efficient in the way you are sort of gaining new knowledge as well, right? Okay, cool. So we are on to our last question in the panel discussion. We've got lots of questions in. Thank you very much. What we'll do is we'll go to this question and then we'll jump into answering all of the questions that you all have sent us. Okay, so this is looking forward. What is your vision for women at Octave? Chamodi, would you like to take a stab at it?
Yeah, sure. So what I believe is there's no one else that understands a woman better than another woman. So you know where you have struggled, the challenges that you faced with. So make sure you take action so that the next generation is not going to be faced with the same challenges. Do what you can do, what you can contribute in that regard. And the other thing is make the workplace a supportive, inclusive workplace so that another woman and next generation women that come into your area, come into the industry, come into your workplace can thrive in.
Okay, thank you. And Nadisha, what about you?
Yeah, Lamana. So I want to highlight two aspects as my vision for a gender unbiased company. I wish to have a workplace where women in leadership path is not obstructed by glass ceiling, but determined only by the capabilities of those individuals, right? So that is one thing. And the other one related to the organizational culture. So I wish to have a company culture that women feels it's not yet another new challenge to balance work and life, right? But they should feel this as an immense opportunity that they got to grow and ponder in their lives.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks. So that's it. Those are the questions that we have. So now we just want to go into the questions that we've got in. So I see a couple of questions on people who are not within the IT space, right? So they could be, there's somebody who's studying in the logistics field. There's somebody who is coming from math and stats and so on. So how, first of all, can they get into this field, and what can they do to be able to pursue it? I think the fact about can they, we've kind of touched base on over the course of this panel discussion, but can you all give some tips on what they can do to get the skills to become a data scientist? Anyone wants to take that up? Just like do something so that I can say your name. I think to start off with, I would say you have a lot of resources available online. Like for an example, Udemy, Coursera, all of these spaces where you can take specific courses. So you can take intro to machine learning, intro to AI. If you're interested in specific types of AI, for an example, NLP or banking, so on, you can very easily find general courses and specialized courses. So like we mentioned earlier, data science is a field that is very much open and welcoming to people from different backgrounds. So if you want to pursue a career in data science, all you need to do is to supplement your knowledge with specific skills, and you can start that off by learning some basic courses on AI and so on. So any other thoughts? Yeah, Dinusha.
Yeah, to add on to that, I heard that question had math and stat. So my background was math and stat, not computer science per se. Like I did an MSc later, but when I joined, it was math and stat. When I joined Octave, my background was only in R, but after I joined the job, I had to code in PySpark. So that was not a problem, that was not a hurdle, but it's like you have to get your hands dirty, you have to do it, and then you become very comfortable with it. It is not a problem.
Okay, there's an interesting question here. What type of IT background should you have? Any thoughts on that? Yes, Chamodi. I thought you were going to answer this. I was like waiting for you to say something.
Yeah, so I come from software background, like I mentioned a couple of times, and I was very skeptical, and I was doubting myself whether I have enough math background and stat background to take it up. And it was challenging when I was doing my master's as well. So it took a lot of self-learning. I think like all of you all mentioned, lots of self-learning. I think even if you are following a very specific degree on data science, there's a lot of things that you should learn by yourself. It's most of the things that we are applying and doing. I think you all can attest that it's not the things that we've learned in university at any point, right? Most of the things, theory, yeah, might be, but a lot of things that you developed while in the job, or self-reading and self-studying, and a lot of that. And if, of course, you can take some other courses as well, like Lamana mentioned, but it doesn't require to have a specific IT degree in this computer science. It has to be in computer science, it has to be in data science. Well, no, if you are willing to do your part, I think, yeah, you can make it.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Chamodi. I see some questions on how to develop data science skills and knowledge, and what are the opportunities that are available. And this is just generally of people who are sort of like in this field. I think we touched base on specific sites that you can use, Coursera, Udemy. I think also if you see, these sites are good for you to learn, right? And you take courses and do the assignments and so on, and you get a lot of practical experience. If you have some advantage, like if you have some knowledge within this space, so you know how to code and so on, then look at Kaggle as well. Like Kaggle is like gold mine for data science problems. So like have that, even if you don't come from a computer science background, like maybe you can start taking some courses and then look at Kaggle and so on. So there's plenty of places, and that old age saying that if you teach, you learn more. So it could even be just like explaining simple concepts to people, or even like creating a blog about it and writing it. So you will just sort of get more and more used to the terminology, how the models are used, how different algorithms are used, and so on. And I think your education is very important, but so is your projects, your experience, right? So if you are not at a place where you're getting to, do these projects in your day-to-day work, then in your weekends or like in your free time, you start, creating this project, create a GitHub, repository, post your projects there, write a blog, build your portfolio outside of work. And that way, when you have, a couple of projects under your belt, then you can start, looking at jobs within the data science field, and you can talk about that. Yeah, this is not my 9-to-5 job, but this is what I have done outside of it, and how I have applied the skills that I've learned even within my job to this, to solving these data science problems. And so I think that's something that is entirely within your control, to develop that portfolio for yourself, courses that you have taken, projects that you have done, and so on. Okay, and then somebody's asking about data science certificates. Again, yeah, Coursera, Udemy, so on. Anything else, guys, like that you all are aware of? No?
Yeah, so Lamana, I think some referring to research papers, I think it might be a bit boring and too advanced at the beginning, but I think that again is something that you can get started with, because a technique that I used is whenever I see some concept or something, I would Google it, because otherwise you would not know like what to search for, right, if you're getting started. So that is another technique that I have used, something to add on to what you just said.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, okay, so this is a question for Shashini. For data visualization, is there a recommended course for Power BI?
Yeah, so as you said, Lamana, there are different courses in Coursera, Udemy, or Datacamp. But there's this certification that is there in Microsoft as a DA 100, where Microsoft itself gives the modules, separate modules, where it contains all from the basics itself up to advanced analytics. So I think following that would be really beneficial for someone who wants to learn from the start when it comes to Power BI.
Yeah, and I think you raise a very valid point. Like, it's not only sort of like courses that you get on Coursera and Udemy and so on, but even tech giants give their courses. Like Microsoft has plenty of trainings, conferences, so on, that they do on Databricks, then like you mentioned, on Power BI and so on. So there's plenty of resources there. Google has some of their courses available as well. IBM definitely has some courses. And so there are all of these different resources that you can take. And you mentioned Datacamp is also another great site that has some good resources as well. Okay. All right, there's a question on how do you balance between work from home and work from office. So there are benefits of working from home as well as drawbacks. After corona restrictions ease, what should be the way forward? In my opinion, it is just work away from office, by the beach, doing what you like and working. But anyone else? Nadisha, do you want to take it up? To find the balance between work from home and work from office.
Yeah, Lamana, the most interesting advantage of work from home is like you can save the traveling time, the commuting time from home to office and office to home, right? So that's a real advantage in a country like Sri Lanka. That's what I feel. But then again, like as a mother, I have challenges working from home. So like that depends on what is your background and who you are. So I feel like, but honestly, I feel when we are working in a domain as in data science, like actually there's no requirement for us to be at a single place, right? So currently, like now, if you take the work at Octave, like it's flowing very smoothly, even though we are located in different locations, right? Yeah, that depends on the industry, but for data science, I feel like both ways work equally. Yeah.
Okay. Nilusha, I'd like to also see whether you have something to say, like, because you're working with, a bunch of data scientists who are doing things for you. How difficult or easy is it to deal with everyone just sort of being, well, not physically there?
So from a personal point of view, I think shifting from work on premise to work from home hasn't been too tough. We've had really good processes around it. And I think working with the Octave team, I've never really felt a difference. Usually when we used to have meetings, all of you guys used to either come to our premises or we used to go to yours. But honestly, I think we've found workarounds to even brainstorm, problem solve, and things like that. From a more perspective of how I manage my team, I found that certain work is better done on premise than through work from home processes. Things like brainstorming, innovative discussions, I found it much better doing it face to face as opposed to doing it virtually. I've also found that occasionally it's nice to get the team to come in, talk to each other, and it kinds of build a little bit more collaboration and morale. So that's my perspective.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, so there's another interesting question here. It's like, I'm a data science undergrad. Can you give me some ideas about what I should focus on more? Like, what are the trending data science areas and what will be trending in the future and have more job opportunities on? So let me give some suggestions over here, and then, like, if any one of you all have some ideas as well, like, please feel free to add on. So I think, it depends on whether you are passionate about a very specific area. Say, for an example, you are passionate about privacy, then you would try to supplement your understanding of that with, like, privacy courses and so on, and then so you're kind of focusing and diving deep into that space. But if you're I would say a generalist, then try to get some understanding on different spaces. So something that is trending right now will definitely be trending even 5-10 years down the line is the space of NLP, right? Because it's still fairly rudimentary, right? And so it can be used in so many ways, from, like, optimizing for recommendations, for fraud detection, and so on. Then I think AI in healthcare will be a very big space. Then I think AI used for, like, self-driving cars and so on will be, also very, in a very big space. Crypto is a big space now, will definitely be also in the future. So what, anything else, any other suggestions, like, on what a data science undergrad should focus on more and so on? I've covered all bases. I've told all of the domains. No, I mean, these are the things that I think of. But I think one more thing is that always keep abreast of AI news. Like, who are the leaders doing AI research right now? What companies are doing some really cool work? And reading about different articles and so on. And you have so many different blogs, like Google research blogs, MIT artificial intelligence blog. Then you've got, even, like, if you subscribe to like different journals, like, The Economist or Harvard Business Review, so on, you can really see how they would have some articles on how AI is being used across different domains, and all of these things will help you get a sense of, like, the context of AI, where it's being used. Definitely used in military, definitely used in finance. So these are all, so many spaces in which it can be used in. So be very current with your AI news as well. Okay. So data science data certifications, licenses. I think Shashini mentioned about Microsoft licenses and so on. Anything else, guys? Anything else that you all can add on to this? The only license that I have taken up so far is just my undergrad. So I mean, I've done some courses, but not really like licenses. So. Okay, cool, no problem. All right, visualization we've answered. Domains connected to data science field, again, it's quite broad. It depends on what you want to do. How to stay positive and hopeful when you get rejected from interviews? Anyone likes to take this up? No one's got rejected from interviews. Okay, overachievers. All right, well, I've got oh, somebody is gonna answer. Yeah, Shashini? No. Okay. Well, I've got rejected from interviews. I really like taking interviews actually, because for me it's always like being current to like just sort of putting yourself out there, getting that practice of like answering interview questions. How do you negotiate? How do you present your work, present yourself, so on. So I always want to, it's like doing an exercise. Like you just want to keep doing it, otherwise you sort of lose your ability to do it. So I really like taking interviews. I've got rejected a fair number of them, but sometimes it's really fun to do interviews with the big tech companies, because they'll invite you over to their campus and then you can get free food, and then you can like talk to people and just kind of see how the building is like and so on. So and you get free stuff like free t-shirts and all of these things, so it's fun. But you always kind of put yourself out there as much as you can, even if you have a job that you like. Kind of keep always like scouting for new opportunities and putting yourself out there, because I mean, the only thing that you do is gain from it, right? You'll always gain from that experience, and more likely than not, you'll learn something new. If you've got rejected from an interview, you know that either you have not showcased your work properly, or you're not able to answer some concepts that they were looking for. So what that means is that you would just have to, like just brush up on it. So yep, that's that. How long will it take to become a successful data scientist? Oh, so do you need to do a PhD along the way? Okay. This is a very broad question, no? Anyone wants to take it up? Never become a successful data scientist. You're always learning. It's difficult to say, no? It just depends on how long you're working, and actually it also depends on the experiences that you have, no? Like if you are able to work in a data science job, then you'll be fast tracked, because you're like 9 to 5, almost like 15-20 hours you're working in this. But if you have to do it on the side, then the amount of experience you're going to get is going to be quite less. But what do you all think about like doing masters? Yeah, Chamodi.
Yeah, so there is actually two ways that you can progress in your career. It's through experience and through academic, right? But I think for data science especially, there is some advantage in these academic qualifications, because this is more of a research-oriented area. So the research experience that you'll be getting in these postgraduate degrees would definitely be advantageous when it comes to looking for jobs. So I think that is why most of the data scientists you see have PhDs. I think that is one of the main reasons. But that doesn't mean that you should have a PhD to get into data science. I think most of the girls here have started their career with their bachelors, right? So I don't think that is something that is mandatory, but nice to have always. So you can actually choose in which way that you can progress. I think that is up to you, because everyone is not cut for postgraduate higher studies, right? So that is something, a call that you can make. But I would, for a software engineering or another non-data science subject area, I would say that it doesn't really matter. But for data science, we really can't say it, because when you look at stats, most of the data scientists, they have some postgraduate degree. So yeah.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Well, we are almost running up to our 7:30 mark. So I think we've covered most of the questions over here. I don't see anything else that's kind of not there. But girls, if you all can sort of have a look at these questions, and if there's anything that we've not covered, just like respond over there so that we can finish on time. So, yep, so that's it for today. Thank you so much for attending this webinar, and I really hope that you learned something, from all of us. And thank you so much for sending in your questions as well. Really, really useful to have that as a part of the discussion. So a couple of closing remarks. Please follow Octave on LinkedIn, and you can get some updates on future events. We're planning to have many events like this. And then a recording of the session also will be available on the Octave YouTube channel. So if you want to get some, remind yourself of some specific things, you can have a look. And also, Sam has just posted, a link to our feedback session. Like a feedback form, so please take the time to fill that up, because that's going to help us curate a better webinar, a better experience for you all the next time we have it. So thank you very, very much for your time. Good night, and stay safe, everyone. Bye bye.